Hey everyone, welcome to Everything Virtual. This is Ronnie and I'm here with John. I know it's been a while, so yeah, sorry for I guess life has gotten in the way of a lot of our recording and everything, but there's been tons and tons of VR news. So we thought that with some of the stuff that surfaced today, it would be a good opportunity to kind of get the ball rolling again, have a conversation about a lot of the stuff that's been mostly, I guess, involving Oculus that's come up recently and then just in general catch up. So thanks for joining me, John. Appreciate it.
Yeah, most definitely. Excited to talk about all this stuff. There's a lot to go over.
Yeah, and just a brief aside before we start, I have my normal microphone, but unfortunately, I'm using the webcam on my laptop, which is a bad webcam. But on top of that, no matter what I tried doing with the lighting up here, for some reason we have these pretty streaks coming down my face. But so just try to ignore that stuff. I really did try to get it to go away, but yeah, regardless. So.
It is
Uh,
what it is.
yeah, it is what it is. Well, before we get started, I mean, what have you been up to, John, lately? Anything exciting in anything exciting in general, I guess, going on with you?
Yeah, there's been lots of good stuff happening down my way. So yeah, started a full-time job doing video stuff. So
Congrats.
yeah, that's been really good. And yeah, so just been busy. We're renovating a space to have kind of a studio space. So I've been kind of getting gear lists together for that and outfitting what that studio is going to look like, lighting wise and gear wise, and all that jazz. So that's been really fun. And then working on a couple of in-house projects edit wise. So it's been busy, but been really good. And then I finally upgraded my VR rig and got an index.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's been super fun. Yeah,
dude.
so the
I,
Rift S.
I know I know we went into like we kind of had a plan of what we were going to talk about in this episode, but maybe like on that note, I mean, what are some of your impressions of using the index for your first few weeks?
It's it's pretty night and day. I would say like definitely the Rift is super comfortable. The Rift S is super comfortable rather. But there's something to I don't know, just the overall feel of the index is really nice. The thing that's most impressed me outside of like obviously like the wider field of view is the thing, the high resolution is the thing, all of that, it's all there, it's all a factor. But the biggest thing to me is the audio on the headset.
Yep.
Those off ear speakers, until you try that, there's no way to really explain how good it is. It's really, really, really
I
good.
agree. It's funny that you say that because that was one of the things like I mean, and someone can go back and listen to old episodes when we were first giving our impressions, but I think that was like after, like over a year or two of using the headset, I've lost sight of kind of what the biggest like changes were for me. But I remember like very vividly saying at the beginning that the audio was the thing that was just like all of these other things are like incremental improvements, like they all add up. But it was like, but the audio, like it was just there was no question that this is how all headsets should be doing audio.
Oh,
Period.
yeah. No doubt. And like obviously the Knuckles controllers are, I mean, they're super cool. The finger tracking is really neat, like especially in stuff like Boneworks, Half Life, any of that stuff. It's really cool. And yeah, and even throwing like some of my buddies who like to come over. I have a buddy who comes over like every Saturday, and he likes to play. He has like his own game going in Half Life on my computer, so
That's
he's
cool.
been yeah he's been going through it. But yeah, him switching from the Rift to the Index, he was really like, what the heck, this is so
Yeah.
far. And it is different, but yeah, but now I have to hang these nice curtains in my sunroom so the base stations don't freak out my headset.
Yeah.
And I think I told you I've very briefly had a Vive Pro too,
Yeah.
but I
I
but I
remember.
did it. I flipped. I bought it from a VR arcade that was right down the street actually, and they shut down their brick and mortar location. They're still doing like events and stuff, but with all this new hardware coming out, they decided that they were just gonna like get rid of it. So they sold this to me like really cheap. So I had it for like a few days, and I was like, I think if I'm gonna do this, I'm just gonna go with an index. And then I flipped it, and yeah, got the index and sold the Rift, and it's been good on the VR end of things. No real new games have been,
Yeah. No, I mean, for
around.
me, it's been one of those things. I mean, even if there are new releases, like, Steam always has new stuff coming in and out. I haven't seen anything like too huge or anything being released, but
Right.
I mean, with COVID and everything, it's been kind of hard for, I think, people to get stuff out. And then just it, I feel like it's just kind of a lull period. There's been so much that was released before to
Most
where, like,
definitely.
if you ever want to jump into anything, I feel like it hasn't been an issue, but yeah, not. But I'm with you. I'm with you. And as you know, like I'm trying to remember. I don't think that I had covered this on the last time that we recorded, but kind of like you, I was, with all the new hardware changes, both in VR as well as just the PC space.
Yeah.
Like about a month ago, I decided that it was my time to sell my 1080 Ti before things got crazy and the prices, which I mean, I haven't looked at the 1080 Ti market, but I would imagine I made the right choice because
Yeah, I'm sure.
so
I'm sure.
yeah, so I was able to sell it, but I've been GPU-less for a while. So I've been, when I do play VR, I just get on my Quest. And
Yeah.
so I've definitely had some fun. Like I haven't played anything too crazy lately in terms of VR. I've been kind of just catching up with a lot of work and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
when I have jumped in though, like Rec Room and like, all of the kind of go-to, like just really dependable titles,
Yep.
those for me, just like I think I started getting a little bit spoiled with the index over the summer because I got it like with the quarantine and all of that kind of stuff. I think we mentioned this on the podcast previously, but I was in a different space for at least the beginning portion of the quarantine. Right. So I had more of a private area where I could spend some quality time with my index that I didn't always get, here at the apartment in Chicago. So
yeah.
So with that, I started getting really spoiled and really, really liking my index way over the Quest and a lot of things. So then, getting rid of the GPU and now moving back to Quest, it's like the games that don't require the fidelity, I love the Quest for. But I can't wait to get my PC back and running so I can jump into the index again. So and that's where right now I'm just kind of waiting to see if I'm gonna pull the trigger on a 3080 or a 3090, and I go back and like I sold my old GPU, so I got a decent chunk back from that, and then I sold a bunch of old hardware too. So like I have enough money to cover either purchase, and so I'm just trying to decide how stupid I am versus how intelligent I'm going to be in my decision, because I know it makes like almost no sense to get the 3090, but at the same time, there's something like for me anyways, I don't know why. I've always really liked getting those TI cards because I've always liked being in that kind of being in the upper edge of that generation's performance. But I always loved that the TI wasn't a ridiculous amount of money like the Titans. So I was the kind of person, like I think actually during the 900 series, I dabbled with getting like a Titan X. And then I decided, no, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that. And I got a 980 Ti, and I was able to flip that for a 1080 Ti, which I thought was worthwhile for VR.
Most of course.
Yeah. So that was kind of, but so I wouldn't say that I've been completely, like I've always had the tendency to kind of make bad decisions when it comes to high-end GPUs. But in the past, because the TIs come out around, and I've never been without a GPU for so long. So I've always kind of had the flexibility. I'm like, I'll wait a little, wait 6 months, get the TI, feel like I get the higher end performance without making the absurd value decision of like spending 2 times the amount on a GPU that's like 15 to 20% faster. But this time I'm in this situation where I kind of I either have to bite the bullet and just wait and see if anything else came out for 6 months or more, who knows? Or I just have to settle on either getting the slightly lower end tier card, or spending the absurd amount of money and getting like, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I, I, I want to say I'm still technically leaning towards the 3090. Just because, like I said, I'm trying to weigh the decisions of how upset will I be when a card comes out that's almost the same performance for
right.
like 1,000, or how, like, will I be more upset that I spent more money, or will I be more upset that like that I bought the lower tier card? That's what I'm trying to like. I'm trying to gauge myself, like not now, but I'm saying in like 3 years from now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, for sure.
so, and I'm not the kind of person, like, I don't love to flip things and buy and sell and all that stuff if I don't have to. Like,
Yeah,
I'd be okay with keeping the more expensive graphics card like a year or two longer if it
yeah.
warranted it. Like,
I see what
so,
you're saying. Oh yeah,
so these are kind of this is where I'm kind of like, I feel like the smartest thing would just get to be to get a 3080 or something, and then be perfectly cool with, like, if I really wanted to upgrade to something that came out a little bit later, to sell the 3080 and to buy whatever new comes out, or just be happy with the 3080. But I could just spend more money because I have it sitting here and get the really cool card and just like just go along with it. So I don't know. So that's where I'm at right now on all that stuff. But
yeah. That makes sense. I'm kind of in that same boat. Like I just bought a pre-build from NZXT back in March, I think.
yeah,
And it came stock with a 2070 Super, which is, I mean, by no means a slouch of a card, but
no,
it's still not even a 3070. So like when, I don't know, like right now, I see what you're saying, because like right now that card is perfectly capable of running all my VR stuff,
yeah,
like with like ultra graphics. Like I can, it's fine. It's not struggling at all.
yep,
So I'll probably end up waiting like a year at
yeah.
least and see kind of what happens then.
I would do
But
that if I was in
yeah,
your boat, like, because I mean, granted, a 1080 Ti isn't like a weak performer, but
no,
I had it for like, since launch. So
right,
that's what, if I did just gotten a new card, regardless of the performance, I would do it. Like, I would wait, and then I would probably be looking towards potentially either like the mid, like if a refresh comes out that is significantly like better, and
yeah,
it looks like you can, like, I would consider it, or I would just wait till the
yeah,
next generation. That's what,
yeah.
and see, that's what for me, I'm trying to decide if, yeah, if I got a 3090, would I be would I be perfectly cool with waiting out this generation, obviously, but also waiting out the next generation? Like, I'm trying to decide what would I like, and what would I prefer doing? Like, would I rather have a 3080 this generation and waiting and then upgrading next generation, or would I rather like get the big card now and then skip 2 generations?
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, I don't know. They're all stupid. Like, at the end of the day, like, all of these cards are more than capable of doing what you need them to do. So,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
so that's,
Yeah, it's weird like how, I mean, it's demanding, all the software stuff is demanding depending on what you're doing. Like, and it would definitely start getting more demanding on like a 1080 Ti in the next few years for sure. But
yeah,
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think where my like I've mentioned to you before, for me it becomes an issue of like there's so much new tech coming
yeah,
out, like just
yeah,
all
that's true.
over the
So,
place with like the new consoles and everything. And I'm like, I mean, I have a PC. I'm not going to Xbox. Like, if I'm going to get a console, I'm going to buy the
yep,
PlayStation. But like, that's, there's that. And then, I mean, we just got this Quest 2, which is like, for us, that's a big deal because it's not, it doesn't look like a huge upgrade, but it's a pretty big upgrade in terms of performance. So like,
yep,
we have that too, and we'll talk about that a little later. But like,
yeah,
Facebook is just going nuts right now. I'm really interested to see. I'm glad that we're doing this tonight, a couple of days before
I
the big
agree.
event, and then we can kind of speculate or whatever, and then talk. Maybe we do an episode on Thursday and talk about what all happened and what our thoughts on everything, and because I'm sure there's going to be some surprises.
Yeah, so let's jump into it then, because that was, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
that was, we have plenty to talk about. So the first thing is just the the Oculus Quest 2, I guess it's going to be called, the leaks that came out recently, and like you were mentioning before we got on here, I mean, they're leaks in the sense that they came out probably before it wasn't
like
they were intended, but at the same time, I don't know, like, and it hasn't really been a secret in terms of we've seen the hardware and leaked photos before and all that kind of stuff. So this is really just more double downing on what we already knew.
Yeah, well, double downing. Yeah, I guess that's a great
and confirming some of the speculation. Like as far as I think people were wondering kind of what the like you could see from the photos what the actual exterior of the device looked like, but you couldn't tell. You know, were the optics improved? Were the screens better? What about the onboard processor? Was that getting a major upgrade? Was it getting, so we didn't know those details, and now we do know most of those details. So I think as far as like the capability of the headset itself, I think there aren't too many huge surprises there as far as like what you're able to tell from the photos. It looks like it's a somewhat cheaper device to manufacture, most likely, from the fact that it's more plastic, less fabric and all of that, though I'm not a huge fan of the fabric headsets anyways. But it has a slightly different, way of attaching, kind of more like the head straps are more akin to the Oculus Go, I think, is what a lot of people are saying than what the Quest. So some are saying that that's a downgrade. I mean, honestly, until you try it on, and I think everybody's head's different. Yeah. So
for sure.
I mean, for me, one of the things that was kind of a letdown is that it doesn't look like there's a massive upgrade as far as the audio is concerned, which is something that you were mentioning. Like, I don't like the audio as it comes, standard on the original Quest, and I think that this looks. I can't imagine it being that much better. So
I don't think it will be at all.
Yeah, so
it's not even like mentioned. Like,
no,
I don't.
So I really think that they're just going for like. I mean, I guess if you're Facebook, though, they're really trying to hit aggressive price points, and it would definitely, it would be hard, I think, to implement something like what Valve has done on the Index or with the upcoming HP Reverb G2, where any kind of more substantial audio solution is going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
So you would have to cut a price somewhere else or just leave. So I guess I can see how that was kind of an easy decision for a lot of the like just typical like casual users that they're probably trying to attract with the low price point. It doesn't probably make a whole lot of sense to change too much there.
And I had a friend come over recently who he has a Quest. That's the only VR experience he had until he tried the Index. And he was like, "Oh, the audio on the Quest is fine." And I kind of thought the same thing when I initially got my Rift S. But it's one of those things like once you experience that, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not even there's no comparison. It's really not, you can't even compare the two. They're so different. But I think, like you were saying, like with, that isn't necessarily Oculus's goal. Their goal is obviously like push VR to the masses. And they, like you said, they're doubling down on that. But with that, I'd love to kind of so the specs in terms of like the internals and whatnot, they're running the XR2 chip, which is a big deal just because the other headsets that are kind of, I wouldn't say they're not comparable. They're a lot more expensive, and they're not consumer grade. They're more like industrial level headsets for training, whatever. Those are the headsets running that chip. So for Facebook to be throwing that in this Quest 2 and then also launching it at a cheaper price point for the 64 gigabyte version, they're going to be taking a loss on that. It's like in some way, I'm sure.
However, well, and it's interesting, like just to go on that a little bit. I wonder if this is what Carmack was talking about. Like some of the stuff that was like alluded to last year at Oculus Connect 6, they talked about kind of the development of the original Quest and how they more or less sourced like an 835 Snapdragon chip from Qualcomm then. And they hinted at being in discussions with Qualcomm to develop like supposedly when they were developing that chip that they were already trying to kind of fit in some features that might more or less help be specific to VR. Um,
Yeah.
but that really, I think some of those discussions would be more fruitful for the next generation. And I think really like a lot of those talks and probably a lot of the work that Facebook did with Qualcomm in preparing for the original Quest, once they actually had a chance to kind of develop a chip from the ground up more with VR and XR devices in mind, I think that's what we're finally seeing with this chip. So yeah, I mean I've seen some of the bar charts and that kind of thing showing just how substantial in terms of performance upgrade is going to be. I think it's one of those things like until we actually see how it actually just performs in the real world, like like yeah, because there's another thing that I'm sure you were going to get to, but the Quest 2 also has upgraded like I think 50% higher pixel
it's almost
count.
a 4K display. Like
Yeah.
it's like almost 2K in each eye. So it actually on a spec sheet beats the index.
Yeah. So here's here was my initial thoughts with that. Like I think that will be really, really good for, I mean, it'll be good for everything in VR. Like anytime you increase, the fidelity of the screens, you're going to, get advantages. My only concern was I wondered how much the increase in resolution is going to take away from the increase in performance that you would get.
Right.
So it's always a trade-off. I mean, if you upgrade your GPU, but you also, render double the resolution, it's going to, kind of counteract. So I'm just curious as to like, are we actually going to see a major performance increase, or is it going to be this? Are we going to expect? Are they going to ask us to expect similar to Quest version 1 performance, only now sharper and better looking? So this is kind of like the idea is just looking at the specs, and that's why something like for me, I'm really curious as to whether this new chip design is going to allow it to just be a more fluid experience overall. So like I'm wondering if in addition to just running better, is it going to be less hiccupy? Like, is it going to be able to do hand tracking better? Is it going to be able to do boundary systems better? Is it like the pass-through cameras? How much better are those going to? So like these are the things that I think I'm really waiting for the upcoming Facebook Connect, which we'll get into more in a little bit. But I'm just interested, like watching the leaked videos, and even I think watching the event. It's going to be one of those things like there's only so much you can see from watching videos and everything. I'm really just curious once people get their hands on them, what their impressions are going to be overall. Like how is this just a higher resolution Quest, or is it going to feel like something more than that? I guess is my and whether and so that's why I'm kind of a little bit mixed on the designation of calling this a Quest 2. Like obviously they felt like that it was time to move on. I'm just curious as to why they felt the need to call this like a sequel to the Quest rather than like kind of like a refresh or an update.
Hardware wise, I'm with you. All right. So also, I feel like we should backtrack just for a second and talk about how Facebook is now requiring a Facebook account to use Oculus headsets. So
I wonder if some of that has to do with this too.
It's definitely possible. And with all of that, like, I just, no matter how good the hardware looks or is, or any of that, there's like, I don't know. It just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it's like, and not that I'm really not like anti Facebook or anything like that. Like I think they do a lot of good, like they do a lot of bad, but I think they do a lot of good too. So where that if that actually balances out, I don't know. But the thing is just like competition is good for sure. However, there's not really any competition for them right now. Like in terms of a standalone headset, like there's no Steam standalone headset. It
Yeah.
doesn't exist yet. So like
And I mean,
there's
even like the Index, like a lot of what Valve does, like internal, like it's more for enthusiasts. Like there's nothing, kind of like you said,
yeah,
there's nothing on the Steam VR side. There's nothing besides the Oculus right now that I would dare to ever label as like mainstream. Like search,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I think it's even questionable, like up to this point, like how much you can say any VR has become mainstream. But like if there is a company that has been able to get some success on that, it's Facebook and Oculus, and
for
they're like
sure.
they're making more and more inroads in that area,
Yeah.
and no one else seems to be even like trying to go for it, other than I guess Sony kind of with the PlayStation VR,
And
but
that's an interesting thing too. Like there's been some speculation that they might be working on their own standalone headset. If they do that, like there's some competition, and I'm all for that. Like
yeah.
we need that in this space really bad right now on a consumer standpoint. I think because like you said, right now it's still so like dominated by enthusiasts, even Quest owners. Like it's just like it's paving the way for the masses to get VR, but it's really just creating like more enthusiasts and like another niche that's like a standalone thing. I
And
don't
I
know if
and
that
I'm
makes yeah.
starting no, and I'm starting to feel like Facebook is kind of pivoting. Like it seems like, I mean, I could be wrong, and I kind of hope there I'm wrong for our sake as far as like a more niche kind of coverage of this stuff.
Yeah.
But it does seem like they're trying to focus more on the mainstream
Mm-hmm.
and like less and less worrying about what the quote unquote like original VR enthusiasts kind of think of what they're doing in this space. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I like I said that. I mean, that might be taking it too far. I hope that they continue, but at the same time, I mean, it seems like all this stuff. Like I don't know. Long term, all I can really like imagine right now is kind of a battle between Facebook and Apple in this space at this point.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Sony, even if they do make their own standalone, they're so they're like the PlayStation brand is it like has never, in my opinion, kind of branched away from the gaming space
Oh
successfully.
yeah. No, no,
Like
no,
like
no.
even when they've kind of tried to do some of that stuff with the original PlayStation Portable with UMDs or
Yep.
like
Yep.
they've definitely tried in the past to like become like the Sony that sells the Walkman and the disc like
Yeah.
the
Yep.
Discman and all that kind of stuff, but then it never really works out, and really it just seems like their gaming brand is really what saves it, like holds them through at the end.
Yeah.
And they obviously they sell TVs, they sell cameras, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
but like in the
Still some really good cameras.
yeah, but in the kind of the more casual consumer space,
Right.
I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like I feel like even their VR stuff, it seems like it's just so locked in and tied with the gaming.
Yeah.
Whereas
It is.
you feel hints of Facebook with Horizon now, and just in general, like the way that they've positioned their research and development,
Yeah.
they
Oh
have
yeah.
much bigger aspirations for where they want their involvement in the field to be. And I
Yep.
think the only one, and we don't know much about what they're working on, but I feel like the only other company that I know of from rumors and whatnot that have those same types of aspirations right now is Apple.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. And Apple's, big on like I've seen like the VR stuff too, but it seems like their focus more is like AR,
yeah,
and figuring all of that out, and that's kind of a territory that hasn't really been outside of like Hololens, which is very like I don't know if you've used one before. It's not great. I mean, it's like it's fine,
yeah,
it works, it functions, but it's not
yeah.
like
I
it's
haven't
not
used a
cracked.
HoloLens, but I used a Magic Leap, and like
Okay.
I wasn't impressed with the Magic Leap. So
Yeah. Both are just kind of fine in my opinion. But that's like the stuff that they showed at OC6 last year with the like them putting on a Quest, and then him being like in his dad's living room, and like the live mapping of the room and all of that, all that sort of stuff. That is like, that's the stuff that gives me hope for like how VR breaks out of just the gaming space. And the gaming's fun. Like it is fun. And that's why there are enthusiasts for it now. But like long term, that's going to be, I mean, I've talked to, I feel like I talked this to death, but like that's in 10 years, that's going to be everybody's reality. Like it just will be. And I don't know if it'll be through Facebook, through Apple, probably both. Like probably in some,
I feel like that's what they're bracing for. I think whatever they're working on, whatever their vision is, whatever Facebook's vision, because I could be like, there could be other players out there that internally are working on stuff that I'm not aware of, but it seems like those are the two companies that are really behind the scenes. Like you see rumors, whether it's going to be more in the AR space or something more akin to what we're used to calling VR. It seems like Apple, at least from some of the stuff that I've read, are somewhat viewing the AR, XR, whatever you want to call it, space as being like both Apple and Facebook see something in the VR AR space as being kind of the next computing platform. Like, and I haven't really heard much of that from other companies and their roadmaps looking forward.
Yeah, no.
So to me, that's kind of what, and so Facebook, it seems like they're really, kind of double downing on their social networking platform, which makes sense, obviously.
Of course.
See, I'm in the same boat as you because, like, before my involvement with the VR space, I really didn't have like a positive or negative view of Facebook. The only thing is that I did have a negative view of social media for myself, just because I knew, like, I have an addictive personality when it comes to some of that stuff. And like, when I first got into the job space, I wanted to spend less time staring at screens, like wasting time, and more like actually doing what I should be doing. So I made the like conscious decision to close my Facebook account and get off of that stuff. And obviously since then, like, Twitter's came up and I have a LinkedIn and I have but I've never gotten back onto Facebook since that time because I kind of just taught myself that now I like social media just in terms of like the tools it provides me. Like I use our Twitter to keep up with VR news and to kind of keep our podcast going. And I use LinkedIn to, make business contacts and that sort of thing. But I've liked to kind of separate my actual, I always felt like Facebook kind of made my life feel like it was something that was online. And I don't get that same sense from a lot of the other platforms I use. And maybe Facebook has changed since I used it back in the day, but okay. So that's the thing I'm personally kind of worried about is like, I don't know if I'm ready. Like my Oculus account is not connected to a Facebook account right now.
Right.
And I'm really looking forward to software like Horizon and like
me too.
So like, and I don't have an active, so I could potentially, reopen one and just, not spend tons of time on Facebook. It's just, I'm in that conundrum kind of like I see a lot of other people out there, which is and for people that have negative viewpoints about Facebook, that's an even more kind of, dividing line kind of like there are some people out there that even though they knew that there was that connection were kind of okay with it until these recent announcements. And I guess we didn't really talk about it, but for those interested out there that haven't heard, and I don't know how many of our listeners will have not heard about this already, but basically Oculus came out and more or less stated that, Facebook is taking over all of the data management of the Oculus accounts and like basically giving users that currently have Oculus accounts more or less 2 years to connect it to a Facebook account. And for anyone that's getting a new device, I think it's going to automatically have to be connected to a Facebook account. And the big difference maker here is that I think even where you were connecting a Facebook account to an Oculus device, the data that it was collecting was still kind of managed by Oculus. But I think now that that's going to be just broader, just it's all going to go in the same funnel of Facebook is
Oh,
just going the
no
same
doubt.
way that they use, data that they're collecting on standard computers. They're going to be collecting all kinds of different data from the headsets, and they're going to be able to use. So like, yeah, I mean, from my perspective, for me, honestly, like I think all that stuff is important. I think I'm less concerned about my outright privacy
Yeah,
personally. And
yeah,
I'm more concerned about just the idea that like I don't want to change my habits based on having to like feel forced to create a Facebook account. Like up until this
yeah,
point, I've kind of stayed off social media to the extent that I feel comfortable with.
yeah.
And I'm not super against it, but I also don't want to get more involved with it. And I feel like for me personally, these announcements give me a little bit of an anxiety because it feels like they're trying to force me back into these networks that I don't really want to be a part
Yeah, 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 yeah.
of.
And I mean, like, and that, like, that's a whole rabbit hole in that of itself. But I mean, I'm with you. Basically, the way, like, just personally, the way that my like Facebook usage works is, I've, I've, I go on like seasons of having the app on my phone, not having it on my phone. Right now, I don't have it on my phone, and I'll check it like in. Usually, I check in the morning because if there's like a family member or something that has a birthday that I forgot, like it's very useful in that regard for me. So like I like wishing people happy birthday. So like I'll do that, and then
Yeah,
I'll like send a text, and then that's it. But it it it's like you said. I have that same tendency. I think the vast majority of people have that tendency to, like, once you click into a social media app, it is, I mean, it's just like it's like a void. But uh that said, like, the cool opportunity, and I get, like, and this is kind of like my flip side view of the whole thing, with Horizons, right? Horizons, to me, seems like it could really be the first thing that is actually like a gateway to, you know, the Oasis, in a sense, like, for lack of a better
sure.
analogy. And the reason for that is, once more people are getting Quests, once more people are getting Oculus headsets, the vast majority of people aren't going to have a problem just tethering it right to their Facebook account.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then that that just
And
interweaves
that's
that whole
and
network
that is the
of people.
competitive advantage. See, this is where I'm kind of divided on this whole issue because I agree that's like completely the competitive advantage that like a Facebook would have over an Apple or over
Yeah.
it's like
Oh
they
yeah.
have a
There's
network of
no
people
contest.
like and that's the other thing like when you bring up like the Oasis and like like I see a lot of people on like online criticizing what they've tried of Horizon or also loving it too, but like the people that kind of think, well, this is kind of just another rec room or just another, alt space or this or that, like, or where what are we going to do with all those apps that are out there and using all those things? I think like for better or worse, whether the app works in a more functional way than what we already have or not. I think just the fact that by Facebook, like ironically, the very thing that people are complaining about that Facebook is forcing them to kind of link their real life identity with their VR identity, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, that exact same thing is what will allow this to work because
Yep.
all of a sudden you're you in VR with the
Yeah.
same kind of social networks potentially that you have in real life in VR. And the more people that get VR and AR devices, the more they'd automatically be a part of that same network. And I mean, if what we all want is a way to interact with people digitally, like this is kind of the way to do it. So
And it's more practical, like, so the whole thing with the whole issue with social media right now, to me, is that, and like Rogan brings this up on his podcast a lot, like, there's no like actual interaction. It's, I can put this, 3 to 4 sentence thing out into the void, and it's just like, screw you. and then, right back to me. It rolls right off the back, or it really affects me and I get angry, but the other person's just like laughing because they're trolling or whatever. What VR forces you to do, for the most part, especially if it's tied to your actual identity, is you have to talk. Like, you
Yeah.
have to have an interaction, like a conversation. And it's different from like VR chat, where, like you said, you can just totally, like, whatever, no name, like, it doesn't matter. It's very much yourself,
Yeah.
and they can pull off their headset, get on Facebook, and be like, okay, I know what this person's about. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that, there are advantages and disadvantages to that, but to me, it's more advantageous for humanity as a whole, because the vast majority of people are not going to act the way that they act online to a person. Like, if you just start having a conversation, you can talk and you
Hmm.
can just like work through things. So it's going to be very interesting. Like, I think it'll have its growing pains for sure. But it's like you said, I've seen those criticisms too of like Horizons or whatever. It's just another rec room. It's just another, like you said, alt space, VR chat, whatever. But it's
Yeah.
not, because of this. This is a
Yeah.
very large
And
factor.
because it's a part of the platform,
Yeah,
and again, like, it's like the same thing that even I was just like questioning. I mean, that's exactly what makes it different, is that if every user is forced into it, it can become something that a platform that would be optional can't be.
yep, yep,
So no, I'm with you, and that's what, like, and I feel the same way. Like, I'm struggling to, like, I feel the urge to connect my Quest to a Facebook account, because
hmm,
I feel like there's going to be a lot of advantages of that. But like
yeah,
I said, I've stayed away from all that stuff kind of intentional. So now I'm trying to, yeah, I'm trying to get myself comfortable with that idea, but we'll just
yeah,
see. Like, it's definitely, yeah, I mean, I think for them, it's the right approach. I think it's really
yeah,
the only
yeah,
approach,
yeah,
because I don't think if they would have made that stuff super optional or super, like, it would just, yeah, I think that's their play. And if you're super against it, then I guess you'll find your VR in other ways. But I think eventually, I guess, yeah, I guess if it pans out and becomes what Facebook is hoping it will become, eventually the people that are over worried, if they want to take advantage of all of those, all of the fruits of what they're doing, then they'll eventually just have to join. And
yeah.
if
And
and
they
if and if it ends up not being a huge tangible benefit, then I'm sure things will kind of move more in the other direction, and people will kind of stay away from Facebook VR platforms, and that's that.
right,
So I
right,
kind of think, I mean, I kind of think it for them, it was a required move, really.
yeah,
And so it's just a question of, now we'll just have to wait to see how it all works out with, for them, for competitors, and kind of how all this stuff shakes out.
yeah, yeah. And I know another thing that I brought up to you before is just like, so like, my headset is not Facebook, like, it's not a Facebook headset, right? So I'm wondering how the Horizon software works, or if it will work with the Index, with the HB Reverb
I
G2,
see.
with
I would
all
imagine
that
it.
stuff.
Yeah, I would imagine it would. But I mean, nothing, as we've learned from this, like anything that's worked in the past, there's no guarantee that it'll work that way forever.
Yeah,
I mean, if they
yeah,
ever want to, I mean, the optimist in me looks to. I mean, you would think that they would have incentives, at least from a software perspective, of having as many people as possible. And so, as long as you're required to be in one of their accounts, like the way Revive works right now is, it's headset agnostic, but it's not like it works without an Oculus account or anything like that.
hmm,
So I would at least imagine that the same controls that they have over, like, the controls that matter are the controls over your account, and not so much the hardware you're using to access the account.
right,
So I would hope that
yeah,
the compatibility
yeah,
still exists, and because if you're trying to use your Oculus account in some way on the, but I agree with you, it'll be, because that's the other thing is, I mean, is there a way to access like the home dash at all from
That's what I don't think so. Well, I'm sure that there is. I'm sure
Yeah, but is
someone's
it an
figured it
easy? It's
out.
not like a native.
Right.
I guess though. I guess Horizons would potentially be something big enough to where, if it's possible, someone will work on a way to. Yeah,
Or
that's an interesting, and yeah, it's an interesting. If it's going to long term, that's I think the bigger thing.
yeah,
With Facebook kind of leaning hard into the Quest,
yeah,
like for now, they have to support the Quest ecosystem as well as the Rift.
right.
And I think as long as they have to support the Rift, it seems like there's potentially ways for other PC VR headsets to kind of join in the party. Like,
Yeah.
but if there's, I mean, it's not unforeseeable that they eventually just move towards supporting the Quest just carte blanche.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they did that, then that would be harder and harder, I think, for Revive and other
It
ways of.
would. And then, but see, then to me, what that becomes is like you were saying, like then it becomes a software thing, right? Then it becomes like, okay, Facebook will license Horizon to Valve for Steam VR or
Yeah,
whatever, and then you can hop in that way if you want to use a higher end, like you know what I mean, like
yeah,
a more enthusiast level headset. Because like, yeah, like that. I think you're right. Like all that stuff will work itself out if it's a big enough platform. Like if Horizons does end up being the gateway to what will eventually become, like Ready Player One,
yep.
then
I mean,
it's
just think of it from honestly, the best example of a company that's operated similarly. It's probably like Apple, honestly. Like, look at, I mean, in some ways, you need Apple hardware to access their services, but in
yeah,
other ways, you don't. Like,
yeah,
I can, like, for sure, there are some things that work way better, like connecting an iPhone to a MacBook and vice
yep,
versa. But
yeah,
then you can totally access your iTunes library on a PC. You can
yep,
totally now, like, they released Apple TV apps on
yep,
on smart TVs, so that even if you don't have an Apple TV device, you're still accessing their services. So
yep. Apple Music, same
yeah,
thing.
So like, and they're probably, at least as far as I can think of, like one of the most hardcore examples of
Oh
like
yeah,
a company
yeah,
that has hardware and software services kind of like that tend to link together. So if
yeah,
that's how they've
totally.
handled it, I would imagine that Facebook will find a way.
Yeah, I
But
think you're right. I think that's for sure going to happen. Well, with that, then I mean, so we've covered the Oculus Quest 2 a
oh, one
bit.
more thing on the
Go ahead.
Quest 2, just like two hardware things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I guess the other thing is it sounds more and more like they will have adjustable IPD. It'll just be
yeah.
like 3 different settings,
Hmm.
which hopefully will be fine. And then also new controllers, which look like they're more or less the
More
same, but
ergonomic.
they look more
Yeah,
ergonomic. And supposedly they may, I think from uh, rumors that have been out there before, they might like refresh faster or something. Like they might
Mhm.
be able to be tracked better. Um, but yeah, I'm curious as to if those will be backwards compatible with, like, if you're able to use those with prior headsets. Yeah, that'll be
At
interesting.
least the Rift, right? For
I hope
sure.
so. I mean, I have the Quest. I mean, if like I have the original Quest, and again, like we'll wait and see exactly what. Right now, my thoughts are I wait this generation out. That could change. $300 isn't too bad of a price, but
No, it's
um,
not. That's
so that's what, like,
thought too.
it's low enough to where it's kind of like if they're very readily available and it's and reviews come out and people are convinced that it's a big upgrade, then I could end up getting it. At the same time, if I hear it's just like a higher refresh or a higher resolution version of what I already have,
Right.
I feel like I might save that cash so that I can get the Quest 3 or whatever
Yeah,
comes
whatever
out
ends up
after.
being. Right.
So we'll see. I think it'll kind of depend on what it's able to do and how much better it does it. But yeah, the one thing that, I mean, the like in my opinion, Facebook does controllers really, really well.
Oh
Or at
yeah.
least Oculus has.
Yeah, they're great.
So yeah, so I mean, I love the original touch controllers. I love the second version of the touch controllers a little bit less, but they were still great.
Yeah.
And if these end up being a little bit of both, like I could see them, being really awesome. So
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, they're probably. I mean, to me, like they don't even. Like the only other, I guess, form factors that you could put out there would be like the Knuckles, which are a thing of their own, and then like the Vive ones. Most of the Windows things, like even the HP Reverb, like they're more or less touch controllers.
yeah,
So like that form factor is really great. The grip button's really great. It's like the best you could probably do without having full finger tracking like the
yeah.
Windows controllers.
See, for me, I mean, the index controllers in like something like Half-Life Alyx, I think they're the best.
Yeah.
But then in games that aren't specifically made for them, I feel like the versatility of having just a button for grip kind
Yeah.
of makes it a little bit more convenient,
Yeah,
because it can be
it's
used
a
in
little
different
easier.
contexts a little bit easier. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's less awkward. Like on the because you literally just have to kind of squeeze, and it is weird. It took some getting used to for sure. I like it personally.
yeah,
That's all down to preference. I think that
yeah. No, I'm with you. And like I said, I think like when you're developing a game around them, then it does
oh
something
yeah,
special.
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah,
it definitely does for sure.
so but anyway, so yeah, so with that out of the way, I guess part of what we were talking about before, kind of the kind of more interlinking between Facebook and Oculus that's taken place, that kind of spilled over to their yearly VR event, which previously was always referred to as Oculus Connect, um, was now redubbed Facebook Connect. And
True.
yeah,
I don't
it's
like it.
see here's the thing. Like I said, from a perspective, if you are Facebook, then I guess you can't view your brand as like as being unpopular. And especially, I mean, you hear all kinds of rumors. I mean, who knows if they're just doing this because it was inevitable, or if like regulatory concerns are leading them towards kind of making everything more into one now, or who knows?
Yeah, sure.
Because to be fair, I mean, you do see Oculus by Facebook as kind of a branding on more of their marketing now.
Yeah,
But I
it is.
was a little bit like, so into like all of these steps that we've seen, like with the data management stuff, with the accounts linking, with Facebook Connect now, all of those seem to suggest that they would be like kind of slowly but surely dropping the Oculus name. But
Yeah.
then, like, I'm an NBA fan, for example, and
Mhm.
they have been advertising on the NBA playoff games. So most of the halftime shows have been the Oculus halftime show. And
Huh.
and it's always Oculus by Facebook, like whenever you see the logo.
Sure. But still
But
Oculus.
but it's still Oculus. And
Huh.
that must have been a fairly recent, like you would think that if they would have like been
Yeah.
making so I'm kind of curious as to exactly where their marketing side is taking the name. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
because yeah, like from the enthusiast perspective, it seems stupid. Like, oh, so many people have mixed feelings at best about Facebook, the branding, but people still have an affinity for the Oculus brand. So like, why would you be trying to bury that? And at the same time, but then looking at it from more a mass market, mainstream
Exactly.
appeal
Oh
perspective,
yeah.
it's like people have I wouldn't say that many people have a negative impression of the Oculus brand, but maybe there are people out there that, either aren't sold on VR or have thought up to this point, this Oculus thing, this VR thing, it's not for me. It's for those hardcore game people over there. So
Yeah.
maybe the pivot to making products more Facebook branded is a pivot to try to signal to people that haven't jumped in yet that this
Yeah.
is for them now.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's all speculation for me, but
I think no. I mean, if you speculate long enough, you have to. Speculation is just like deductive reasoning, So it's like all that sounds about like where my train of thought goes as well.
yeah,
I that's more or less what I think it is too, and that's neither here or there. Like at the end of the day,
yeah,
they're going to do whatever they're going to do. The people that were doing it and developing it, they're all the same. Like none of that. I mean, it's changed since Facebook has bought Oculus, but like,
Yeah.
year to year, like now,
Yeah.
everyone's, it's all
Most of the
whatever.
original Oculus people were gone last year when it
Right.
was called
Exactly.
Oculus. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I agree.
So
No, so
whatever.
yeah, it's all interesting stuff though. I think that's
It
more
is.
than anything. And yeah, from our kind of ground level observance of all this stuff, it's just interesting and fascinating to kind of see the landscape change.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think I personally would be more worried if I really like. I still don't think I think Facebook is doing as much as they can to take advantage of this first mover momentum that they have.
Yep.
But I do think that's, I mean, that's it's if they're successful, it's only a matter of time before other big players enter the space. So like this is kind of all like, they spent several $billions to get this head start. And for whatever reason, like not a whole lot of players have jumped into it yet. But I think it's just a matter of time. And at some point, we're going to be looking at this and everybody's going to have products out that kind of, whatever. Again, like it might not be the exact form factor that we're used to seeing now with VR headsets, but the interlinking between all of these technologies, like I think it's inevitable that, in 10 years from now, we're going to be using devices that are probably some kind of an amalgamation of the stuff that everybody has in their hands and pockets right now. But also have in some ways some of the capabilities that these weird headsets are that you and I have in our lives right now. So
I completely agree. And I think most of the other big players are just kind of like watching, taking notes, like just
waiting to see what works and what doesn't.
What's working. Yep. Yeah. All that sort of stuff. I'm sure, I mean, specifically Apple has a unique opportunity with this to actually do something innovative for once, like in like the past, I feel like Apple hasn't innovated anything the past like decade.
Yeah.
So, and that used to be like, every couple of years it was like, what the heck? This company is ridiculous. They're always cutting edge, always. And like, and then it got to be where like they started like perfecting, cutting edge tech that was kind of wonky on like a Galaxy phone or whatever. Yeah. And that became that's been the reality for the past like probably 10 years or more. Like, that's just what it is. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. We just kind of like, I feel like we've plateaued on a level, and where we haven't plateaued is like processing power and all those sorts of things continue to elevate, and that's great. Like I got an iPhone 11 and it's it runs really well, like compared to even like the iPhone 10 that I had a few years ago. It's it's kind of a night and day difference, which is in terms of performance, but like the phone itself it's just an iPhone. It's like it's the same thing. So like
that excitement that you used to get with like a new, like it wasn't just that you were buying like a slightly smoother, faster phone. It was that you were buying like a new experience with something that it's like I can do something with this that I couldn't do before, and this is exciting. Now it's just like these pictures look better, or or it like the menus don't lag as much when I scroll them.
Yep. And that's like in the early 2000s, we had so much of that. Like like you mentioned, like the PlayStation Portable, that was crazy back then. Even though the UMD ultimately failed, like that was still like bizarre.
Because there were things that you couldn't do back then that technology was allowing you to do. It was like before that point, you couldn't watch movies on the go on a little screen, and now all of a sudden, like.
I remember the exact moment. So my dad worked for an airline at the time, and we were flying to Minnesota, and it was like a 4 or 5 hour flight, something like that. I was really young. I was like 7, 8 maybe. And he pulled he pulled the PSP out. I had no prior knowledge. Like, it's not like now, you know what I mean? Like, it was
Yeah.
just a completely different time. So he pulled this thing out, and he was like, all right, so I have these games that you can play, and I also have Spider-Man 2 that you can watch, on this. And I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, what? I can watch Spider-Man 2 on this little thing? I
Yeah.
was like, that's crazy. And
Like
it
right
was.
now here, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. But all that to say, like, I feel like we're like kind of right at the cusp of another one of those things. And VR to me is like we're talking about kind of the bleeding edge of all that. So it's cool. Like, we can talk Facebook to death, but like, it's, between Apple, even and even more the people that are doing the enthusiast stuff, Valve, HP, whatever. I guess, HTC as well. Like, they're still doing things kind of. So like,
I think
we're there.
yeah.
We're getting there.
On that same note, like I think you're seeing a bridge of a lot of different technology. Like I think, yeah, we've been getting more and more processing power these past 10, 20 years, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it seems like we're hitting a cusp now where a lot might soon be possible when it comes to like cloud computing, AI, all of these kind of I don't know about 5G necessarily, but just in general wireless technology. Oh, can you? Yeah, all of these things. And sorry if there was any kind of audio. Can you hear me now, or?
I can hear you. There's just like a little buzzing.
Oh, okay.
It's like
still?
a weird buzz. Oh, Zane says it sounds okay.
Okay, good. Good.
Me. I don't know what it is.
No, you're good. You're good. No, you're good. Yeah, I just want to, especially if it was coming through. But yeah, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of emerging technologies right now that if they're utilized together in a strong way, that it could lead to a lot of those same kind of sentiments you were talking before. Like, what? I can do this now. Like, you're starting to see signs with like streaming games. Like, I know there's latency still. There's still like a lot of problems with this stuff, but you're starting to see glimpses of things that we didn't think were possible starting to become possible.
Yeah.
One of the things with the 30 series of GPUs from NVIDIA that I thought was, really this double downing on using like AI learning for downsampling for DLSS.
Yeah. Yep.
And being able to basically find ways of making things that computationally we used to think were impossible suddenly possible with these new types of technologies. So yeah. I think all these things can kind of play together in a way that can lead to the future types of technologies that we'll see. Like AR and VR, and like when combined with these emerging technologies with AI, with I think that has potential to bring about like new innovations, like you were saying though.
Yeah. And that, I think that's a good segue into the reverb. Just because I don't know if you've seen too, like the weird, I don't know if it's shipping out, I guess, with like the potential capability of like face tracking and all of this stuff. Which I just think is really interesting. That to me, like, one of the biggest takeaways from Oculus Connect last year was the whole bit where, like I mentioned earlier, like you're in a headset, and then you're all of a sudden sitting next to a family member in their living room. Oh, and let's turn on an episode of like whatever. I'm watching The Boys on Amazon right now, so like let's watch that. And I can be in my living room, but we're gonna watch it in their living room, even though we're not even like in the same space.
And actually linking that together with like the reverb connection with what Oculus did with the Quest last year.
Yeah.
I also think it's fascinating that they were able to add features to the Quest, like hand tracking and all that sort of thing, without having to make any kind of hardware changes. That was all
Yeah,
software. Like, I mean, I think that utilizes AI to some extent, like being able
it
to
would have to, right? Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, that also reminds us that some of the innovations that come with these platforms aren't necessarily, surface level. Just can
yep,
it, does it have varifocal lenses, or
yeah,
does it like like these companies, especially the really big ones, are able to make some really, really cool advances using just software and AI and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So, so the bottom line is like, I agree with you. If like at Facebook Connect, in a couple of days, if in addition to the Quest 2, they show off like new ways that they intend to capture your avatar
yeah,
online, or like even if it's not, obviously Facebook Horizon has kind of a cartoony, kind of more stylized look, but even if they just allude to, being able to transport us in better ways sooner rather than later, like I think
hmm
that stuff is all the things that I look forward to seeing. So
yeah. Me as well. And I think with Horizons too, like I remember reading an article last year. Someone asked about that specifically. They asked like, "Hey, is it always going to look like like Disney Pixar animations of ourselves, or will it eventually turn into like the more hyper realistic Ready Player One esque type thing?" And the answer that was given was more or less like Horizons is intended to be like a platform where there will be multiple worlds, and maybe within those worlds your avatar changes like depending on where you're at, like maybe you know maybe they're not always hyper realistic, but maybe like say I don't know, like if there was ever like a Super Nintendo land or something like in
yeah,
VR, like something like that, you look like a Mario character or like a Nintendo character. And then like if there was like some Disney park that you could go to, you go there and you're a Pixar character, or you're just a straight up like 2D animated character depending on like your like where you're at, what you're doing. And then, I like if you go visit, Hoth, and you're in full kit and you've got, a tauntaun that you can ride and a lightsaber and like, like whatever. And it all
yeah,
changes to fit like what that world is supposed to look like. And then, I'm sure that there will be plenty of like innovated worlds, but that's their whole thing, right? With Horizons, it's like they're putting the tools in your hands to be able to kind of craft your own experience to an extent. And like right now, and people, all the criticisms, I think they're valid criticisms. It's worth hearing, but criticism's only good if it's constructive, right? So I like, I think that what a lot of people have forgotten, the people who are just like outright bashing, it's it's still a beta. Like we have not even scratched the surface. This is just
yeah,
like very, very surface level. So I think we're gonna see a lot of that. But yeah, I'm with you. I hope that we see more of like the intended uses, the like what how have they advanced that that face tracking software in this past year, because it was
mhm,
already really good last year. I'm sure it's just a matter of like they can't cheaply push that to consumers yet,
yeah,
and it's figuring out how to box that in and make it all work a little more fluidly. um there's like all those sorts of things are way more interesting to me than like Medal of Honor VR, which is cool, but like
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
like I don't know.
No, I agree. That's more of the same, and what we're looking for is kind of the next stage. I think that's part of why I'm not super excited about the Quest 2. Not that it doesn't look cool, but just to me, when I look at it, I'm like, oh, it's what I have, but like shinier, and like,
Yeah,
like I'm really like I look forward to the new innovations.
yep,
And so I'm happy that things are getting better, and I'm still excited to see what they do with the Quest 2. But like honestly, I'll be more excited if they show us some new software innovations that they're able to do with, even if it's only the Quest 2, if it's regardless, if it's something that I haven't seen before that can now be done in VR, like those are the things that will excite me, that'll motivate me to buy new hardware,
yep,
and those are the things that excite me about the future. So,
yep, me too. Yeah, like this year, like I said, like I just purchased an index. I I'm a sucker for nostalgic things. So seeing like 3D All Stars release on Switch, I was like, oh, man,
Yeah,
gotta pick up a Switch. So I picked up a
yeah.
Switch to play that. And then like the PlayStation, I've talked about it here before too. I'm a huge Spider-Man nerd. So like Miles Morales, Spider-Man, like I'm gonna
By
get
the
a
way,
PlayStation.
I'm like the biggest sucker when it comes to. So I saw the Mario the Mario 3D All Stars news,
Yeah.
and like because I have all these big expenses coming up, rather than like buying a Switch to get legit, I went and bought like the Wii U version of Super Mario 64, which
Oh,
is
that's
like
awesome.
but it was like $10 or whatever that I spent on
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
Wii U that I know I won't be able to transfer to, and I'll probably end up getting a Switch, and I'll end up buying it again. But
Yeah.
anyways, so
But
I'm with you. I'm with you,
it's all yeah,
dude.
it's all there.
Literally, I was like, Super Mario 64 is good enough to where I am perfectly okay with spending
Yeah.
$10 now and then giving Nintendo like, more of my money to
Yeah.
get Super Mario 64 again. But
Yeah.
I'm a
Thankfully
sucker.
yeah, I am too. Thankfully I found someone who was selling they they clearly don't know the market right now. This is so sidetracked, but I think
Yeah.
it's okay. I think people enjoy listening to this. It's like he clearly just like had not looked at the aftermarket on Switches right now because I mean, I think we've talked about that here too when we were talking about all of the Oculus headsets selling out. Like Switches are doing the same thing still. Like they're still selling out. So they're I think the aftermarket is typically for a new one, it's at least 400, usually like 450 or so. And the Switch lights are, around 280 or so.
Yeah, they're around like where a normal Switch should be. Like,
Right, which is
yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I just happened to see while I was on Facebook, funny enough, for just a second, an ad that someone was selling a like they said they had it for a week, just sit and enjoy it, and they were getting rid of it for like 225. And I was like, I'm
Dude,
in.
that's brand new.
Yeah, I'm I'm just gonna have to go for it.
That's
So and
awesome.
I had already pre-ordered All Stars too because I saw limited release and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, people are about to scalp this, and they have.
Yeah. No,
So
I heard they're all sold out already. And yeah.
yep, it's wild. It's a weird thing, but those are different conversations.
We'll
But
have to do
still fun.
a Switch game review at some point.
Yeah, I'd be super down. Well, I mean, we could we could review the what's their like cardboard VR thing.
Yeah.
There's a VR version of Smash for Switch, apparently. I didn't know this until like this weekend. My buddy was over and he was like, have you tried this? Because he knows that I'm big into VR. And I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. And he was like,
Yeah.
it's very good. But yeah, like it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. I haven't tried it myself, so.
Yeah, me either.
But all right. Well, let's end this one. It went on for a while, but I thought
It
it was a
did.
good discussion. So
Yeah, most definitely. And we had we so much to cover, and
dude, it's been so long, honestly. Like I'm glad that we're finally getting around to recording something, and hopefully after Facebook Connect, we should touch base again. We can kind of do a two and just
absolutely
like were things what we expected? Are they better? Are they not? Whatever. So
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right.
So
well, yeah. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back with another episode hopefully soon.